chosen one. What you are hearing right now is not ordinary encouragement dropped into your day by chance. This is a direct word meant to meet you in a precise hour, because heaven does not gather your attention without purpose. You are not here to guess what God might be saying later. You are here because a message has been released with clarity, urgency, and timing that reaches straight into your present moment. Something is already moving closer than you think, and your body is not being left out of that movement. God is not dealing with your future while ignoring your flesh, your nerves, your sleep, your breathing, your strength, or the hidden places where weariness has been living. This moment is intentional. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. You have been taught for a long time to separate the spiritual from the physical, as if God only speaks to the soul, while the body is left to endure whatever it can. Yet the truth is far more intimate than that. The God who formed you did not create your spirit and then abandon the rest. He knows the language of your muscles. He understands the weight carried in your chest. He sees what stress has done to your shoulders, what fear has done to your stomach, what grief has done to your energy, and what long seasons of uncertainty have done to the rhythm of your body. That is why this word begins here with a warning that is also mercy. In the next 24 hours, you may notice a change. It may not look dramatic at first. It may not arrive with fireworks, noise, or visible spectacle. But something in you is beginning to respond to what heaven is releasing. What makes this message so serious is that you may be tempted to dismiss the first signs. You may call it mood. You may call it exhaustion. You may call it coincidence, sensitivity, or one of those strange little shifts that appear and pass. But the deeper truth is that God often begins quietly when He wants your attention to stay pure. He does not always start with the kind of sign that impresses a crowd. He often begins with something personal enough that only you can recognize it. A sudden heaviness, a sudden stillness, a different kind of breathing, an urge to pull back from noise, a strange awareness in your chest that feels like both peace and pressure at once. A moment when your body seems to know before your mind understands. That is not something to laugh off too quickly. Sometimes your body receives heaven's signal before your thoughts can form words around it. You have been in seasons where your body learned how to survive what your heart could not explain. You kept moving while carrying emotional burdens you never fully named. You kept showing up while your inner life absorbed tension, disappointment, spiritual warfare, confusion, and fatigue. You learned how to function while hurting. You learned how to smile while your body stayed braced for the next disruption. You learned how to stay alert even when nothing was happening because part of you no longer trusted peace to remain. And over time, that kind of hidden strain leaves marks. It settles into posture. It settles into sleep. It settles into appetite, energy, focus, and the quiet chemistry of your nervous system. That is why when God begins a new thing, the body often reacts. Not because something is wrong, but because something buried is being touched. This first section is not about fear. It is about preparation. Because if you do not understand that a bodily shift can accompany a spiritual moment, you may misread what God is doing. You may resist what is meant to help you. You may speak against what heaven is gently introducing. And this is where discernment matters. Not every sensation is mystical, and not every discomfort is a message. But there are moments when the timing is too exact, the inward witness too steady, the spiritual atmosphere too strong to ignore. There are moments when you feel in your bones that something has changed. You cannot explain it fully, but you know the day does not feel ordinary. You know your body is responding to more than routine. You know something is rearranging itself beneath the surface. That is the sacred warning. Do not rush past the next 24 hours like they are empty. Pay attention. Notice what feels different. Notice whether your body asks for stillness instead of striving. Notice whether your heart rate, your breathing, your energy, your hunger, your tension, or even your need for silence begins to shift. Notice whether familiar stress suddenly feels unbearable, not because you are weaker, but because what you once tolerated is no longer meant to live in you. Notice whether certain environments begin to feel too loud, too sharp, too draining. Notice whether you feel drawn away from chaos and into quiet. These are not small things. These are often the earliest signals that God is bringing your body out of agreement with what your spirit has already outgrown. You may have prayed for change while imagining only external results. You may have expected doors to open, enemies to scatter, money to appear, relationships to improve, or answers to arrive in visible form. But sometimes the first place change appears is in you. Not in your schedule, not in your bank account, not in the people around you, in you. In the temple that has carried more than it should have carried. God begins by touching the inner ground of your life. He deals with what has been inflamed, overworked, neglected, or overloaded. He brings attention to the body because he is not just calling you into a new season, he is making you capable of inhabiting it. And capability is not only spiritual language, it is bodily language too. You cannot walk in peace if your whole system is trained only for alarm. You cannot receive clarity if your body has been locked in survival. You cannot sustain what is holy if you are still organized around fear. So this warning is gentle, but it is not casual. Do not argue with every change just because it feels unfamiliar. Sometimes unfamiliarity is the first evidence that old patterns are losing their grip. The body you have been living in may be about to stop cooperating with the pressures that once ruled it. The body that once carried silent panic may start demanding rest. The body that once accepted constant tension may begin rejecting it. The body that once pushed through everything may suddenly refuse certain rhythms. That does not mean you are failing. It may mean you are being interrupted by mercy. It may mean God is no longer allowing you to live disconnected from what you have endured. And as this first warning settles into you, another truth begins to rise beside it. This shift is not punishment. It is not heaven turning against you. It is not God making your path harder for no reason. It is God making something visible that has been hidden too long. When the body begins to speak, it often reveals what the soul has been carrying in silence. That can feel unsettling at first because what was buried now comes close to the surface. But exposure is not cruelty when it comes from God. Exposure is often the beginning of relief. What is named can be healed. What is brought into light can be released. What your body has been storing without language may finally be entering a season where it no longer has to hold everything alone. So as you move into the next hours, stay watchful without becoming afraid. Stay attentive without becoming obsessive. Stay open. Let this message settle where it needs to settle. The warning is simple. Do not treat the next 24 hours as ordinary, because your body may begin to register a holy interruption before your life around you catches up. And if that happens, do not panic. Do not mock it. Do not bury it under distraction. Receive it with reverence. Because what begins as a subtle shift may be the first whisper of a larger restoration, and the God who speaks to your spirit is more than able to touch your body too. As that first warning settles into your spirit, the next thing you may begin to notice is not excitement, not visible breakthrough, and not immediate strength, but weariness. That is often where people become confused. You hear that God is moving and you expect to feel energized right away. You expect a rush, a spark, a wave of power that makes you feel unstoppable. Yet sometimes when heaven begins touching your body, the first sign is the opposite. You feel heavy. You feel slower. You feel less interested in forcing yourself through the usual pace. You may even feel frustrated because your body is no longer responding the way it did yesterday. But this is where discernment protects you, because not all fatigue is failure, and not all slowing down is weakness. There are moments when God allows the body to become tired because He is breaking its agreement with constant strain. You have lived through seasons where tiredness became normal. Not the ordinary kind that comes after a long day, but the deeper kind that sits behind your eyes and follows you even after rest. The kind that makes simple things feel heavier than they should. The kind that teaches you how to keep going while secretly feeling depleted. For a long time, you may have treated that as just part of life. You learn to function around it. You learn to push past it. You learn to call it responsibility. Adulthood, pressure, discipline, or just the cost of surviving hard seasons. But the truth is that the body keeps a record. It remembers every anxious morning, every sleepless night, every time you swallowed stress and kept smiling, every moment you stayed alert because peace felt unsafe, and every season where you carried emotional tension without release. So when God begins resetting something in you, that stored burden may make itself known through unusual fatigue. This is not always dramatic. Sometimes it appears as a sudden need to sit down. Sometimes it looks like losing interest in things that normally keep you stimulated. Sometimes it feels like your body is asking for silence in a way that almost surprises you. Noise feels louder. Demands feel sharper. Even conversation can begin to feel more draining than usual. And the temptation is to shame yourself for that change. You may think you are becoming lazy, unfocused, or emotionally fragile. But what if the deeper truth is that your body is stepping out of performance mode? What if the weariness you feel is not a collapse, but a refusal? What if your system is no longer willing to spend itself the old way? That is one of the quietest miracles God performs. He does not always begin by adding more energy. Sometimes he begins by exposing what has been stealing it. He lets your body stop pretending. He lets the exhaustion become obvious enough that you can no longer decorate it with productivity. He lets you feel the cost of carrying what was never meant to become your normal. That can feel deeply inconvenient. You may have plans. You may have expectations for yourself. You may want to keep proving that you can handle everything, but God is not impressed by the version of you that survives by abandoning your own limits. He is not calling you into a future where you remain internally overworked while appearing externally faithful. If he is preparing you for something cleaner, quieter, and more aligned, then the false strength has to be interrupted first. There is a holy difference between laziness and divine slowing. Laziness resists purpose. Divine slowing restores it. Laziness avoids responsibility. Divine slowing teaches you which responsibilities were never yours to carry in the first place. Laziness dulls the inner life. Divine slowing sharpens it. When God pulls you into a quieter rhythm, it often feels unfamiliar because so much of your identity may have been built around pushing through. You became strong in visible ways, but that strength may have hidden an invisible wound. You became dependable, but dependence on your own force may have replaced trust. You became resilient, but resilience without rest can turn into a cage. So when your body starts asking for something different, do not rush to condemn it. You may be standing in the middle of a reset that your mind has been praying for, even if your habits have not caught up. This kind of reset often begins with your body refusing to burn energy on things that do not belong to your next season. That can feel strange. You may notice that certain conversations exhaust you faster. Certain places feel heavy before you even arrive. Certain obligations suddenly seem too expensive. You may find that your body has less tolerance for fake urgency, less tolerance for people who drain your peace, less tolerance for tension disguised as normal life. That is not pettiness. That is discernment, becoming physical. Your spirit may have known for a long time that some environments were misaligned, but now your body is beginning to join the protest. It no longer wants to carry what your discernment has already rejected. And there is another side to this fatigue that many do not understand. Sometimes when God is bringing you out of survival mode, your body has to pass through a season of deeper tiredness before it finds real rest. That is because survival itself can feel energizing in a distorted way. Adrenaline creates motion. Hypervigilance creates focus. Pressure can produce a false sharpness that tricks you into thinking you are functioning well. But once God begins removing that false fuel, you may feel the emptiness underneath it. You may realize how tired you have been all along. You may discover that you were not truly energized. You were activated. There is a difference. Activation can keep you moving for years while silently draining you. Real peace, by contrast, may feel slow at first because your body is relearning how not to live under threat. That relearning matters. It is sacred work, even when it looks unimpressive from the outside. The world celebrates people who keep going no matter what. Heaven is often gentler. Heaven asks whether the pace matches the peace. Heaven asks whether your body is under the rule of trust or the rule of fear. Heaven asks whether your strength comes from communion or from emergency. And those are not abstract questions. Your body answers them every day. It answers through breath, tension, fatigue, appetite, sleep, and the invisible rhythms that govern how you move through the world. So when unusual tiredness rises in the middle of a holy shift, do not immediately call it interruption. It may be your body finally telling the truth. You do not need to dramatize this. You do not need to turn every tired moment into a prophecy, but you also do not need to insult what God may be revealing. Sit with it. Ask what has been draining you beyond what is visible. Ask what pace you have been maintaining out of fear rather than wisdom. Ask whether your body has been carrying spiritual pressure, emotional residue, or constant self-protection for longer than you realized. Ask whether this fatigue is inviting you to stop proving and start listening. Because one of the most profound things God does is bring you to the end of false momentum. He lets you feel that you cannot keep living from the same exhausted script. He lets the old engine lose power so a new rhythm can be born. That new rhythm will not always announce itself with lightning. At first, it may simply feel like permission. Permission to pause. Permission to breathe without earning it. Permission to stop interpreting every quiet moment as falling behind. Permission to lie down without shame. Permission to admit that your body is not a machine built to carry endless invisible warfare. Permission to believe that holiness is not measured by how much pain you can hide. And when that permission lands, something soft begins to happen inside you. The pressure to perform weakens. The need to outrun your own exhaustion loosens. The body starts to sense that it may not need to live clenched forever. That is why this section matters so much. The fatigue itself is not the final destination. It is the threshold. It is the doorway into a slower, cleaner honesty. God is not merely making you tired. He is drawing your body out of alliance with panic urgency and constant overextension. He is creating space for a reset that your deeper self has long needed. And if the next hours feel heavier than usual, do not assume heaven has gone silent. Sometimes the holiest thing happening is that your body is being invited to stop fighting, stop bracing, and stop pretending it can live forever on borrowed strength. Sometimes the miracle begins with the strange mercy of finally feeling how tired you really are, because only then can true restoration begin. So remain gentle with yourself as this unfolds. The warning from earlier still stands, but now it takes on a clearer form. If the next 24 hours bring unusual fatigue, receive it with wisdom. Not every heaviness is holy, but some heaviness is the sound of old pressure leaving its throne. Some tiredness is the body asking to be reintroduced to peace. Some slowing down is heaven's way of saying that your next season cannot be built on the nervous system that carried your last one. And if that is what is happening, then your tiredness is not a dead end. It is the beginning of a holy reset. As this holy reset moves deeper, the next place it often touches is the place where you are least in control, and that is your sleep. During the day, you can still manage appearances. You can still organize your tone, direct your attention, complete tasks, answer messages, and tell yourself that you are fine. But when night arrives, the body becomes more honest. The masks loosen. The push to perform weakens. The mind can no longer command everything with the same force. And that is often when God begins doing some of His quietest work. So if your sleep starts changing in the next 24 hours, do not dismiss it too quickly. The night has always been one of heaven's most private rooms. You may notice that you become sleepier than usual, as if your body is being drawn into rest before your mind agrees with it. Or you may notice the opposite at first. You lie down, but your spirit feels alert. Your body wants stillness, yet something inside you seems awake in a different way. You may wake at unusual hours. You may drift in and out of sleep. You may experience dreams that feel sharper, heavier, more symbolic, or more emotionally vivid than normal. Even if you do not remember them clearly, you may wake with a lingering feeling that something happened in the night, something your conscious mind cannot fully name. This is one of the strange places where spiritual movement and bodily response can meet. The body sleeps, but heaven is not inactive. Many people misunderstand sleep because they only think of it as physical recovery. Of course it is that. Your body repairs itself there. Your nervous system recalibrates there. Hormones settle, muscles restore, and the mind begins sorting what it carried through the day. But sleep is also where control loosens, and anything that loosens control becomes a place where truth can rise more easily. You cannot grip the wheel the same way while sleeping. You cannot edit every feeling. You cannot manage every reaction. You cannot keep every buried thing beneath the surface. That is why night can become so spiritually charged. It is not because every dream is a message or every restless hour is mysterious, but because when your usual defenses soften, deeper layers of your being can finally be reached. That matters for you now because you may have spent a long time living in a body that does not fully trust rest. You may have gone to sleep tired but not surrendered. You may have lain down physically while remaining inwardly alert. Part of you may have learned that sleep is never complete safety because too many hard seasons trained your system to stay watchful. Even when the room is quiet, the body can remain braced. Even when nothing is happening, the nervous system can behave as though something might. And if that has been true for you, then any change in sleep is not random. It may be one of the first signs that God is touching the very place where your body learned to guard itself most fiercely. Sometimes this looks like deeper sleep than usual. A kind of heaviness pulls you under, not in a harmful way, but in a way that feels almost medicinal. Your body seems determined to go somewhere your mind has been postponing. You wake and realize that for the first time in a long while, you are not fighting your own rest. Even if only for a few hours, something in you let go. That may seem small to someone else, but it is not small when your body has spent months or years resisting softness. It can be holy when the body stops patrolling the night and starts receiving it. Other times, the shift comes through interruption. You wake at 2 in the morning or 3 or just before dawn, and you are not sure why. The room is still. There is no obvious cause. Yet your heart feels strangely open. Your thoughts are unusually clear, or perhaps your emotions are closer to the surface than usual. This can be unsettling if you are used to seeing wakefulness at night as only a problem. But sometimes when you wake in these hours, it is not merely disturbance. Sometimes it is invitation. The day is loud. The night is thin. In those quiet hours, what you normally push aside can step closer. Prayer becomes easier. Honesty becomes simpler. Tears come without resistance. Insight arrives without strain. God has always known how to speak when the world has lost its volume. And then there are dreams. Not every dream is sacred, and wisdom is needed here. Dreams can emerge from stress memory, imagination hormones, and countless ordinary processes. But even with that said, there are times when the emotional quality of a dream is too exact to ignore. You may dream of old people, old houses, old roads, locked doors, water storms, pursuit cleansing children, sickness, flight falling, being called, or being led somewhere unfamiliar. You may not know what every symbol means, and you do not need to force an interpretation, but pay attention to the emotional imprint. Did the dream expose fear? Did it leave peace? Did it bring grief to the surface? Did it feel like a release? Did it echo something you have been sensing while awake? Sometimes the purpose of a dream is not to hand you a coded map. Sometimes it is simply to reveal what your deeper self has been holding in silence. That revelation can be powerful because so much of what the body carries never makes it into your daytime language. You keep going. You handle what needs handling. You move from task to task. Yet at night, what is unspoken begins to move. The body remembers what the mouth did not say. The heart brings up what the schedule kept buried. The nervous system releases fragments of fear it could not process while you were busy surviving. And into that vulnerable place, God can bring comfort, uncover residue, or begin to break patterns that have outlived their purpose. This is why sleep becomes more than sleep during a season like this. It becomes a chamber of undoing and rebuilding. You may also notice that certain habits before sleep no longer fit comfortably. Noise that once distracted you may now irritate you. Endless scrolling may suddenly feel draining. Conversations that leave your spirit unsettled may affect your body more strongly at night. This too is part of the shift. As your body begins moving toward a more honest state, it becomes less willing to absorb things carelessly. It wants cleaner air, cleaner atmosphere, cleaner endings to the day. That is not you becoming overly sensitive in a negative sense. It may be your system learning that peace is not automatic. It is protected by what you allow near your gates, especially in the final moments before rest. There is something else to understand here. Sleep changes can feel disorienting because they expose how little control you truly had over your own restoration. You may have believed that rest was just a matter of trying harder, scheduling better, or becoming more disciplined, but sometimes the issue was never only behavior. Sometimes the deeper issue was that your body did not feel safe enough to surrender. That is why God's involvement matters. He is not just giving advice from a distance. He is touching the interior atmosphere of your being. He is calming places in you that logic could not reach. He is allowing buried fear, grief, and tension to come forward in forms your waking self can begin to recognize. And through that process, sleep can start becoming what it was meant to be, not just unconsciousness, but trust enacted through the body. So if the night becomes unusual, do not panic. If you sleep deeply, receive it. If you wake unexpectedly, stay calm and listen before assuming the worst. If dreams become vivid, hold them lightly but respectfully. If your body asks for a quieter evening, honor that request. You are not becoming strange. You are moving through a sacred reorganization. The warning from the beginning is still guiding you. Do not treat these 24 hours as ordinary. And now that warning reaches into the night as well. Your sleep may become the very place where God begins showing you that your body no longer has to serve anxiety as its master. By the time morning comes again, something subtle may already be different. You may not be able to explain it in polished language, but you may sense that your interior world has shifted. The night may have softened something. It may have stirred something. It may have revealed something. And that is enough for now. God rarely explains the whole process at once. He often lets you notice the fruit before you understand the mechanics. What matters is that you stay open, stay gentle, and stay aware that the place where you surrender control each night may be the very place where heaven is teaching your body a new agreement with peace. As the night begins, teaching your body a new agreement with peace, the next change may rise in a place that feels surprisingly ordinary yet deeply revealing, and that is your appetite. What you hunger for, what you crave, what suddenly tastes wrong, what feels too heavy, what no longer satisfies you the same way. These things often say more than people realize. Appetite is not only about food, it is about comfort, reward regulation, distraction, survival, and memory. The body reaches for certain things because it is hungry. Yes, but also because it is tired, overstimulated, lonely, stressed, bracing, grieving, or trying to bring itself back to a sense of control. So if your body begins changing in the next 24 hours, it would make sense for hunger to become one of the first places where that shift becomes visible. You may notice that foods you usually want suddenly feel unappealing. You may reach for something familiar and feel almost repelled by it. Not with drama, not with fear, but with a quiet inner resistance that surprises you. Or the opposite may happen. You may feel hungrier than usual, but the hunger carries a different texture. It does not feel like simple appetite. It feels like your body is searching for something it cannot quite name. This is where wisdom becomes important, because the body often confuses comfort with nourishment when it has been under pressure for too long. It reaches for fast relief. It reaches for sugar, excess stimulation, heaviness, or routine because those things once helped it endure hard moments. But when God begins resetting you, your body may start protesting what it used to tolerate. It may no longer want the same agreements. That can feel frustrating at first. You may want the old comfort. You may want the familiar ritual of eating something that once soothed you, only to find that it no longer lands the same way. The satisfaction is thinner. The peace does not come. The heaviness afterward feels more obvious. And this is not just about discipline or self-improvement. This is deeper than that. Sometimes the body rejects old comforts because the spirit has already moved beyond them. Sometimes what once helped you survive cannot accompany you into the next season. The appetite shifts because the body is learning to stop asking the wrong things to save it. That sentence may touch more than food, because food becomes a mirror in seasons like this. You begin to see how often you reached for something visible when what you truly needed was unseen. You needed safety, but took stimulation. You needed calm, but took distraction. You needed gentleness, but took indulgence. You needed rest, but took a treat and called it recovery. None of this is said with shame. It is said with tenderness because most people do not learn these patterns on easy days. They learn them while coping. They learn them while carrying more than they can explain. They learn them in busy kitchens, lonely evenings, stressful afternoons, and silent nights when the body begs for relief in any form it can recognize. So, when your cravings begin to change, do not meet that change with accusation. Meet it with curiosity. Something holy may be exposing what your body has been using as a substitute for peace. You may also notice that your body becomes more sensitive to what enters it. Foods that once seemed harmless may now leave you feeling dull, irritated, bloated, restless, or disconnected. Again, this is not a command to become obsessive. It is an invitation to listen. The body, in a season of spiritual alignment, often becomes less willing to numb itself. It wants clarity. It wants breath. It wants lightness. It wants rhythms that support peace rather than sabotage it. That does not mean perfection. It means awareness. It means the fog is lifting just enough for you to notice what has been costing you more than you admitted. And then there is another layer. Appetite can shrink when emotion rises. Some people under holy pressure do not want more comfort food. They want nothing at all. Hunger fades. The stomach tightens. The idea of eating feels distant, inconvenient, even irritating. If that happens, do not romanticize it, but do not ignore it either. Sometimes when the body is processing something deep, appetite withdraws because the system is occupied with survival release or adjustment. The body has only so much room at once. Yet even here there is a spiritual question worth asking. What has been sitting in you so heavily that your body no longer knows how to receive simple nourishment? What grief? Fear, anticipation, or invisible strain has been tightening your inner world. When God draws your attention to appetite, He may be doing more than changing your diet. He may be teaching you that receiving is part of healing. That lesson can be harder than people admit. Many have learned how to endure, but not how to receive. You know how to push through hunger, push through tiredness, push through need, push through the signals your body sends. You know how to keep functioning while disconnected from yourself. But receiving is slower. Receiving asks you to pause. It asks you to notice what truly nourishes and what merely pacifies. It asks you to bless the body instead of using it as a machine. It asks you to eat with peace instead of urgency, with awareness instead of distraction, with care instead of punishment. And when that begins happening, even in small ways, you are not just changing habits. You are changing relationship. Your body is no longer the thing you drag behind your calling. It becomes part of the ground where God is restoring order. This is why discernment around cravings matters. Cravings are not always evil, and and they are not always meaningful in some mystical way. But they can reveal patterns. They can reveal times of day when your body feels unsupported. They can reveal what emotions make you reach for excess. They can reveal what environments disconnect you from your own signals. They can reveal where you are mistaking being filled for being comforted. And once you start seeing that something subtle begins to change, you no longer obey every urge just because it is loud. You learn to ask, what is this craving really asking for? Is it energy? Is it grounding? Is it a break? Is it sweetness because life has felt dry? Is it heaviness because you feel unheld? Is it crunch salt or stimulation because your nerves are overfired and reaching for sensation? These questions are not strange. They are part of growing wise in your own body. And as this wisdom grows, a holy separation begins. Your body starts distinguishing between what tastes good for a moment and what leaves peace behind. That is a powerful shift, because much of life is shaped by what you repeatedly consume, not only through your mouth, but through your eyes, ears, schedule, and relationships. Appetite is a doorway into a much wider truth. If your body is learning to reject what leaves you inflamed, agitated, or dulled, then that lesson will not stop at food. It will spread. You will begin losing taste for conversation that poisons peace. You will begin losing taste for urgency that disguises itself as importance. You will begin losing taste for spiritual noise that leaves your heart more confused than clear. The body often learns this first in the simplest places. A plate, a craving, a sudden aversion, a need for water instead of more stimulation. Small things, but they point to larger rewiring. You do not need to become rigid to honor this change. Rigidity is not holiness. Fear is not discernment. God is not trying to make you anxious about every bite. He is trying to make you present. Present enough to notice that your body is not random. Present enough to see that what once soothed you may now burden you. Present enough to understand that nourishment is part of obedience too. Because if you are entering a season of realignment, then what you consume cannot remain entirely separate from what you carry. The next version of your peace will have physical habits wrapped around it. The next version of your clarity will need space in your body, not just good intentions in your mind. So in these next hours, pay attention to hunger without worshiping it. Pay attention to cravings without letting them rule you. Pay attention to aversions without turning them into fear. Let your body teach you something. Let the small shifts speak. If your appetite changes, if certain foods feel too heavy, if certain comforts lose their power, if the desire for clean simplicity rises, receive that gently. It may be one more sign that God is drawing your body out of old agreements and into a calmer relationship with itself. And that is the deeper promise hidden here. The body that once ran toward anything that offered quick relief is beginning to slow down and choose differently. The body that once ate against its own signals may begin listening again. The body that once looked for comfort outside itself may begin discovering that peace changes appetite from the inside out. This is not about becoming impressive. It is about becoming aligned. It is about learning that when God touches your life, He does not only address what you believe, He also addresses what you consume, what you tolerate, what you reach for when no one is watching, and what your body has been taught to call comfort. And in that quiet retraining, something clean and strong begins to take root. As your appetite begins to separate comfort from true nourishment, the next shift may appear in a place so immediate that you feel it before you can even name it, and that is your nervous system. This is where the body often feels heaven first. Before your thoughts settle into language, before your emotions become clear, before your circumstances visibly change, your nerves may begin reacting to something your spirit has already sensed. That can look like trembling hands, a fluttering chest, sudden restlessness, skin sensitivity, a wave of calm that seems to arrive from nowhere, or a strange awareness that your body is becoming more responsive to everything around it. And when this starts happening, many people become frightened because they assume that every internal sensation means something is wrong. But sometimes what you are feeling is not damage. Sometimes it is detection. Sometimes your nervous system is registering a shift before your mind catches up. You have likely lived through more pressure than most people ever saw. You may have learned how to look composed while your system stayed overstretched. You may have answered messages, carried responsibilities, solved problems, cared for people, endured uncertainty, and kept a mature face on everything while your body remained quietly braced inside. That kind of hidden bracing becomes normal after a while. You stop noticing how tight your jaw is, how shallow your breathing has become, how easily you startle, how quickly your heart rate changes, or how often your body interprets simple life as a potential threat. You begin calling it personality sensitivity or being a deep thinker when in truth, part of your system may have simply been living too long in alert mode. So when God begins resetting the body, the nervous system is often one of the first places where the change becomes unmistakable. This is because the nervous system is the bridge between what you experience and how your body learns to survive it. It is constantly reading the room, reading tone, reading facial expressions, reading energy, reading unpredictability and deciding whether to relax, mobilize, or protect. It does not ask your permission first. It moves fast. It stores patterns. It remembers places, voices, seasons, and sensations. That is why two people can walk through the same day and have completely different bodily reactions to it. One feels calm, the other feels activated. One remains steady, the other becomes exhausted. The difference is not always weakness or strength. Sometimes it is history. Sometimes it is what the body has learned to expect. And if your body has spent too long expecting disruption, then even peace can feel strange when it first arrives. That is one of the reasons nervous system shifts feel so confusing. You may begin to feel unusually restless, but the restlessness is not always a sign you are moving away from peace. Sometimes it is what happens when your body is adjusting to it. A room can grow quiet, and your body may still expect noise. A moment can become safe, and your body may still wait for danger. A prayer can land in your spirit while your nerves are still catching up. This lag is real. It is not hypocrisy. It is not failure. It is simply what happens when spiritual truth begins arriving faster than bodily trust can process. The body needs time to believe what the spirit already knows. So if in the next 24 hours you notice small tremors in your inner world, do not rush to label them wrongly. That flutter in your chest may not be panic. It may be release. That wave of sudden tears may not mean you are unstable. It may mean your system is softening enough to stop holding everything inside. That desire to step away from noise may not be avoidance. It may be intelligence. That strange sensitivity to crowded rooms, sharp voices, tension, artificial urgency, or emotional confusion may not be weakness. It may be your body finally refusing what it used to endure without question. There is a difference between being fragile and being honest. Your body may be moving toward honesty, and then on the other side, some of you may feel the exact opposite. Instead of restlessness, you may encounter sudden calm. A kind of stillness descends into you that feels unfamiliar, almost suspicious at first. You wait for the tension to return, and it does not. You expect the usual mental spirals, and they come with less force. You move through a situation that would normally activate you, and instead of tightening something in you, stays open. That can be just as disorienting as discomfort, because when your body has lived under pressure for a long time, peace itself can feel strange. You may wonder why you are not reacting the usual way. You may even try to stir yourself back into old vigilance because the familiar often feels safer than the healed. But if calm is arriving, receive it without apology. Not every peaceful moment must be earned through struggle. Sometimes it is simply God allowing your nerves to remember what safety feels like. This is why discernment around bodily sensations matters so much. Your nervous system has a language. It speaks in pulse, tension, breath, tingling warmth, cooling, fatigue, irritation, startle, and stillness. You do not need to become obsessed with those signals, but you should stop treating them as meaningless. When heaven begins touching the body, the nervous system becomes one of the loudest witnesses. It tells the truth about what your body has been carrying. It tells the truth about which environments drain you, which people put you on guard, which rhythms keep you inflamed, and which forms of peace you no longer know how to trust. And once you begin hearing that truth, it becomes much harder to return to the old habit of overriding yourself. Overriding has likely been one of your survival skills. You overrode discomfort because you had work to do. You overrode fatigue because people needed you. You overrode anxiety because no one was coming to rescue you from your responsibilities. You overrode the knots in your stomach, the pressure in your chest, the racing thoughts, the brittle evenings, and the subtle dread because life kept moving. There was always another task, another expectation, another emotional demand. So you became practiced at ignoring what your body was trying to report. But now that God is drawing you into realignment, the old strategy becomes less sustainable. The more aligned you become, the harder it will be to betray your body's honest signals just to maintain appearances. That may show up in very practical ways. Your breath may shorten around certain conversations, and you will know those conversations are costing more than they should. Your shoulders may tighten when you agree to things you do not have peace about. Your stomach may clench when you enter spaces where your spirit has already sensed disorder. Or by contrast, your body may exhale when you choose honesty, stillness, simplicity, and truth. The nervous system is not your enemy here. It is part of the witness. It is helping reveal where your body has been trained by fear and where it is beginning to be retrained by peace. Retraining is the right word because this is rarely instant. People love dramatic transformation stories, but much of healing is quiet repetition. Your body learns safety little by little. It learns that not every silence hides danger. It learns that not every pause means collapse. It learns that not every closed door is rejection. It learns that not every difficult emotion must become a crisis. It learns that you can breathe through discomfort without abandoning yourself. It learns that calm is not a trap. And as it learns these things, the nervous system begins to stop firing alarms at every shadow. The body starts reclaiming energy that used to be spent on constant scanning. That is holy work, even if nobody else sees it. And this is where many chosen ones get tripped up, because they are so accustomed to intensity that they mistake healing for losing their edge. You may fear that if your nervous system calms down, you will become less discerning, less prepared, less sharp. But constant activation is not discernment. Hypervigilance is not wisdom. Living braced is not the same as being spiritually alert. In fact, much of what people call sensitivity is simply a nervous system that has not been taught peace. True discernment can remain calm. True wisdom does not require chaos in the body. True spiritual authority does not depend on staying internally inflamed. So if your nerves begin settling, that is not you becoming less powerful. It may be the first sign you are becoming more governed. And if your nerves feel more stirred before they settle, do not lose heart there either. Sometimes shaking happens before quiet. Sometimes the body trembles as it lets go. Sometimes an old charge surfaces because it is finally close enough to be released. You do not need to make that dramatic. You only need to stay present and gentle. The body is not betraying you by reacting. It may be telling the truth at last. And truth, even when it appears as sensation, is a mercy if it leads you out of old bondage. So in these next hours, pay attention to your breath. Pay attention to the difference between holy calm and forced numbness. Pay attention to whether your body is asking for stillness, water, fresh air, prayer, or a break from stimulation. Pay attention to what happens in your chest when you tell the truth, when you say no, when you stop performing, when you choose peace over urgency. These are not small details. This is the nervous system learning a new ruler. No longer fear, no longer pressure, no longer endless self-protection. Something gentler is taking the throne. And that is why your nerves may feel heaven first. Because before your schedule changes, before people around you understand, before the visible evidence arrives, the body often knows. It trembles, it exhales, it protests, It softens. It reacts to peace as though it were a stranger, and then slowly learns to call it home. If that is what is beginning in you, then do not rush it and do not resist it. Let your nervous system be taught by something kinder than survival. Let it discover that God is not only speaking to your spirit in abstract language, He is also touching the hidden circuitry of your body, teaching it what safety, truth, and calm can feel like from the inside out. As your nervous system begins learning the difference between survival and peace, the next place this holy interruption may show itself is in discomfort you cannot easily explain. A sore neck, pressure in the head, tightness across the shoulders, an aching back, a heavy chest, a knot in the stomach, a strange tension in the jaw, a fatigue in the limbs that feels older than the day you are living. This is where many people become alarmed or impatient because pain gets attention quickly. It interrupts plans. It demands focus. It makes everything feel more serious. But in a season like this, discomfort can sometimes function like a messenger. Not every ache carries spiritual meaning, and wisdom matters here. Yet there are moments when the timing, the pattern, and the inner witness all line up, and you realize your body is saying out loud what your soul has been carrying in silence. You have likely spent long periods minimizing what hurt. That becomes a habit when life keeps moving. You tell yourself it is just stress, just a long week, just bad sleep, just posture, just hormones, just getting older. And sometimes it is ordinary, of course. Bodies are human. They get tired, sore, depleted, inflamed. But what often goes unnoticed is how emotional burden and spiritual strain can settle into physical form. Fear can live in the stomach. Grief can sit in the chest. Anger can harden the jaw. Responsibility can gather across the shoulders. Uncertainty can hollow out energy. Years of bracing can become muscle memory. The body is not poetic in the way it reports these things. It is practical. It tightens. It throbs. It burns. It drags. It refuses. And because it speaks this way, many people miss the deeper question. They ask only how to get rid of the symptom, not what truth the symptom has been forced to carry. That truth may be coming closer now. In the next 24 hours, you may become more aware of places in your body that have been speaking softly for a long time. What once stayed in the background may step forward. A familiar tension may suddenly feel louder. A subtle discomfort may become impossible to ignore. Something that used to be occasional may now ask for your attention in a more direct way. This does not automatically mean danger. Sometimes it means revelation. Sometimes God allows the body to stop compensating, stop numbing, stop smoothing over the strain. He lets you feel more clearly what has been there, not to punish you, but to bring honesty into places where you have survived by disconnection. Disconnection is one of the most common ways people keep functioning. You disconnect from hunger, from tiredness, from sadness, from anger, from fear, from pain, because if you felt everything fully all at once, it might seem like too much. So the body learns to mute certain signals. Not forever, but for long enough to help you get through. That strategy can be merciful in hard seasons, but it is not meant to become a permanent home. Eventually, what was muted must be heard. Eventually, what was carried without language must find some form of expression. And when that happens, pain can become part of the translation. The body says, "Look here." Something has been held too tightly. Something has been burdened too long. Something that was buried is asking to be brought into light. This is especially true for chosen ones who have learned to endure spiritual pressure without ever naming it as pressure. You may have spent years in atmospheres that demanded too much from you. You may have carried the weight of reading rooms, absorbing tension, anticipating conflict, regulating other people's emotions, or keeping yourself composed while inwardly stretched thin. You may have called it maturity. You may have called it wisdom. You may even have called it love. But the body does not lie about cost forever. It keeps the ledger in sensations. It keeps the record in posture and breath and inflammation and exhaustion. That is why pain sometimes rises when God is drawing you into a new season. Not because you are being attacked for moving forward, but because what has been hidden in the body can no longer come with you unchanged. There is a holy difference between being harmed and being uncovered. Harm crushes. Uncovering reveals. Harm isolates you inside suffering. Uncovering begins the process of release. And though they may feel similar at first, they are not the same. When God uncovers what your body has been storing, He is not mocking your weakness. He is honoring your humanity. He is saying that your body does not have to remain the silent warehouse of everything you survived. He is saying that what you endured does not get to live in your muscles forever. He is saying that the pain has a voice, and once the voice is heard, healing can begin to move differently. That hearing begins with attention, not fearful attention, not obsessive scanning, not dramatizing every sensation, just honest attention. Where does your body tighten when you feel pressured? Where does it ache when you suppress tears? What part of you grows heavy after certain conversations? What pain sharpens when you abandon your own boundaries? What discomfort appears when you are around people who pull you into performance? These are sacred questions because the answers reveal patterns. They reveal relationships between the inner life and the physical body that many people spend years ignoring. Once you start noticing those connections, pain stops being only an enemy. It becomes information. It becomes a witness. It becomes part of the truth-telling. You may discover that some pain increases when you betray your peace. That matters. Your body may be more discerning than you realized. A headache after chaos, a stiff neck after emotional strain, a clenched jaw after staying polite too long, a tight chest after swallowing what needed to be said, a stomach twist when you agree to something your spirit resisted. These are not always random. They are often the body's way of saying that inner and outer life are no longer in agreement. The body protests what the mind tries to rationalize. It reveals the cost of pretending you are unaffected. And when that revelation comes, it is not there to shame you. It is there to invite a different way of living. And yet, there is another layer because some pain does not come from what is happening now. It comes from what never fully left. Old fear, old rejection, old grief, old humiliation, old seasons where your body learned to lock down just to survive. The pain shows up today, but its roots reach backward. That is why some aches feel strangely emotional, even when you cannot explain why. A heaviness comes, and suddenly you are more tender than the day itself seems to justify. A tension rises, and it feels ancient, as though your body remembers something your mind has not revisited in years. This is where grace is needed. Because when old pain rises near the surface, you do not need to conquer it in one dramatic moment. You do not need to become your own rescuer. You need to let truth breathe. You need to stop arguing with the fact that your body remembers. And you need to let God meet you in that remembrance without forcing instant resolution. Sometimes the holiest thing you can do is admit this hurts more than I've allowed myself to say. That sentence carries power. Not because it makes you weak, but because it ends the lie of emotional self-erasure. Your body has been carrying stories your mouth did not always tell. Your shoulders know things. Your stomach knows things. Your jaw knows things. Your spine knows things. Your fatigue knows things. And if God is bringing those things close to the surface, it is because He is after more than inspiration. He is after freedom. Freedom that enters the body, not just the vocabulary. Freedom that changes how you breathe, how you rest, how you move through rooms, how much weight you keep carrying without permission. That is why this discomfort must not be mocked. Do not numb it too quickly in your mind with easy explanations. Do not treat your body like an inconvenience in the middle of your calling. Do not speak harshly to yourself just because pain has made itself known. Listen, ask, notice. Let the discomfort reveal where you have been holding yourself together too tightly. Let it show you where hidden fear still grips. Let it expose where peace is missing. Let it tell the truth about what your body no longer wants to keep storing. This is not weakness. This is the body becoming legible. This is the pain speaking without words. And as it speaks, something begins to loosen, not always all at once, not in the tidy way the mind prefers, but slowly, honestly, the body starts learning that it no longer has to be the graveyard of unprocessed strain. The pressure can be named. The ache can be respected. The tension can be softened. The grief can be acknowledged. The body can stop carrying what truth is finally willing to hold. That is what makes this section so sacred. Pain is not being glorified here. It is being listened to. It is being brought out of isolation and into relationship with grace. So if in these next hours your body feels louder, do not panic. Stay wise, stay grounded, stay gentle. And where appropriate, take care of yourself in practical ways too, because the holy and the practical are not enemies. Rest when needed. Breathe more deeply. Loosen your jaw. Step away from chaos. Drink water. Stretch. Sit with God in quiet honesty. But beyond all that, recognize this: the discomfort may not be meaningless. It may be the body's way of telling you that what was hidden is coming up for air. And if it is, then that pain is not merely interruption, it is testimony. It is the sound of your body refusing to keep silent about what it has carried alone for too long. As pain begins to speak without words, the next part of this transformation becomes even more serious, because God is not only drawing hidden strain to the surface, He is beginning to break your body's partnership with old warfare. This is where the shift grows deeper than fatigue, deeper than sleep, deeper than appetite, and deeper than discomfort. It reaches into the way your body has learned to live as though danger is always one step away. It touches the invisible armor you have worn for so long that you no longer notice you are wearing it. It confronts the posture of constant readiness, the reflex to brace the habit of expecting disruption, the quiet belief that if you do not stay alert, something painful will slip through. And in the next 24 hours, you may begin to sense that your body is no longer willing to keep serving those old commands. That realization can feel strange at first, because for a long time your body may have treated vigilance like wisdom. You stayed ready. You read the room. You watched people's tone. You anticipated disappointment before it arrived. You noticed subtle changes in atmosphere. You learned how to detect tension, quickly respond carefully, and protect yourself before you had to be told directly that something was wrong. That skill may even have helped you survive certain seasons. It kept you from being blindsided. It helped you navigate difficult people, unstable environments, spiritual pressure, and emotional unpredictability. But survival skills that protect you in one chapter can imprison you in the next if they are never laid down. What once preserved you can eventually begin ruling you, and when that happens, the body stops living in the present. It remains loyal to battles that are already over. This is what God begins confronting now, not by condemning you for adapting, not by mocking the ways you protected yourself, but by gently interrupting the patterns your body still obeys even when your spirit is trying to move forward. He is teaching your body that it does not need to stand guard at every gate anymore. He is teaching your muscles, your breath, your pulse, your gut, your posture, and your reflexes that they do not have to keep behaving as though yesterday's danger is still your permanent environment. And when that lesson begins, the body can react in surprising ways. You may feel moments of softness that almost scare you. You may notice your usual defenses not rising with the same speed. You may recognize that something you would normally overthink no longer holds you with the same force. Or you may feel the body resisting the release because laying down armor can feel vulnerable before it feels free. That is one of the hardest truths to accept. Protection can become so familiar that peace feels exposed. You can become so used to living guarded that openness feels risky. You can mistake tension for preparedness and relaxation for carelessness. And if that has been your pattern, then when God begins loosening the old armor, you may not celebrate immediately. Part of you may question it. Part of you may want to tighten back up. Part of you may search for the next problem just to feel oriented again. This is not because you love chaos. It is because the body often trusts what it has practiced, even when what it has practiced has been hurting it. So if you find yourself in that tension, do not judge yourself too quickly. You are not resisting healing because you are broken. You are encountering the awkward middle ground, where your body is being asked to believe that peace can be real. And peace, when it first enters a body trained by warfare, does not always feel instantly comfortable. Sometimes it feels empty. Sometimes it feels slow. Sometimes it feels like you have forgotten something important because the usual pressure is not there to keep your mind occupied. Sometimes it feels almost suspicious. You wonder why you are not as tense. You wonder why you are not rehearsing conversations. You wonder why your body is not sounding the same alarms. You may even become tempted to manufacture urgency just to return to what feels familiar. That temptation matters, because what God is doing is not just removing stress. He is retraining identity. He is showing you that you are not meant to measure your seriousness, your discernment, or your usefulness by how much tension you can carry. For many chosen ones, old warfare became a hidden identity, not consciously perhaps, but practically. You became the one who could handle pressure, the one who could read hidden motives, the one who could stay alert when others were careless, the one who learned to keep going with very little support, the one who knew how to prepare for impact. And though there is genuine strength in what you survived, there is also danger in building your whole bodily existence around constant defense. Because eventually the battle posture stays even when the battle itself has shifted. The body forgets how to come home. It forgets how to unclench. It forgets how to trust stillness. It forgets how to be present without scanning for what might go wrong. That is why this section is so holy. God is not merely giving you relief. He is dismantling a way of living that once protected you but can no longer be your master. This dismantling may show up in small, almost quiet ways. Your shoulders drop without you forcing them. Your jaw relaxes. Your breathing deepens in a room that would once have tightened you. You stop rehearsing someone's reaction before speaking honestly. You notice you can sit in silence without feeling hunted by your own thoughts. You move through part of the day without monitoring everything around you. You realize that your body does not want to stay in certain environments anymore, not because it is weak, but because it is no longer willing to normalize constant internal battle. These moments may appear small from the outside, but they are enormous within. Every time the body stops enacting old warfare, a piece of your future becomes more livable. Because that is the deeper issue. Your future cannot be built on endless bracing. What God is leading you into requires a body that can receive as well as endure. A body that can rest as well as act. A body that can remain present without interpreting every unknown as danger. A body that does not spend all its energy on prediction scanning and containment. The next season may still require wisdom. It may still require discernment. It may still ask you to be awake, clear, and spiritually grounded. But it cannot be sustained by hypervigilance. What God gives in peace cannot be stewarded well by a body governed by fear. So before He expands what is around you, He begins by quieting what is within you. This is where some of your old habits may become more visible than ever. You may catch yourself mentally preparing for rejection before anyone speaks. You may notice how quickly your body shifts when a message arrives, when a tone changes, when a plan moves, when a person delays, when something uncertain appears. You may see just how automatic your inner armor has been. But remember, exposure is mercy. Once you can see the pattern, you are no longer unconsciously ruled by it. Once the body's old reflexes become visible, they can be brought under gentler leadership. You can begin answering them differently. You can pause before obeying them. You can breathe instead of bracing. You can remain still instead of spiraling. You can tell your body with your choices that every shift is not a threat and every silence is not abandonment. And that teaching happens through repetition, not forceful repetition, but faithful repetition. You breathe when you would normally brace. You rest when you would normally over-prepare. You stay present when you would normally scan. You tell the truth when you would normally shape yourself around other people's moods. You leave environments that inflame you unnecessarily. You stop volunteering your body for battles it was never assigned to fight. Little by little, the old warfare loses its throne. The armor becomes heavier than freedom, and you no longer want to carry it. There is also grief here, though many do not expect it. Because when the body starts letting go of old warfare, you may suddenly realize how long you have been living this way. You may feel sorrow for how much pressure became normal. You may mourn the years spent in internal vigilance, the energy consumed by staying ready, the quiet toll it took on your sleep, your joy, your appetite, your relationships, and your sense of safety. Let that grief come without shame. It is part of the release. You are not grieving because healing is failing. You are grieving because truth is arriving. You are recognizing what your body has paid to survive. And once that cost is fully seen, it becomes harder to keep asking your body to live the same way. That is why this change is sacred. Your body is not just calming down. It is resigning from an old assignment. It is stepping out of a role it never wanted but learned to perform. It is withdrawing its agreement from stress as identity, from tension as loyalty, from hypervigilance as proof of wisdom. It is not becoming careless. It is becoming governed by something quieter, steadier, kinder, governed by the truth that you do not have to fight every invisible war with your muscles, governed by the realization that your body is not required to stay in emergency mode just because that once helped you survive. So, as these next hours continue unfolding, watch for the subtle signs. Watch for the moments when your body refuses old panic. Watch for the times when you would normally armor up and something in you stays soft instead. Watch for the instant when you realize you no longer want to carry certain tensions, perform certain defenses, or remain inwardly armed against things God is already asking you to release. These are not random moods. These are markers. They reveal that the body is stopping its service to yesterday's battles. And this is the promise resting underneath all of it. God is not asking you to enter your next chapter exposed and unprotected. He is asking you to stop using fear as your form of protection. There is a difference. Real protection does not require constant internal warfare. Real peace does not demand endless self-defense. Real guidance does not keep your body clenched at all times. So if you feel something loosening now, if you sense the armor slipping, if your body seems tired of fighting battles long after they passed, receive that as mercy. The old warfare is losing its authority. Your body is beginning to understand that it does not have to live like it is still trapped in the rooms God already brought you out of.